Hello, my name is Tyler Young, and I made this piece called Settler Stuffy. I am a painter and jeweler from Portland, Oregon. I got my degree in ceramics and jewelry from San Diego State University. So to talk about this piece a little bit, I wanted to recall the sort of times when you're in like elementary school or grade school and you were taught to venerate these colonial icons, and the sort of way how teachers omit the sort of heinous acts and colonial mentality that these settlers had. So I made this piece in like reference to stuffed animals, hence the name Settler Stuffy, as this sort of weird way of remembering the twisted and mixed history that you have, both in the sense when you're a kid and you remember like how cool these people first came off, and me speaking as a Filipino American and depicting Ferdinand Magellan. For if you don't know, Ferdinand Magellan did commit a massacre in the Philippines during his famous circumnavigation of the globe. And so it's the strange, the strange mixed feelings of like, in school he's taught to be this really cool thing, and then in my personal life and then with my extended family, I'm taught the more real history of what he's done to my people. I also put a dot over his face. This is in reference to some of the work that John Baltasari did, and trying to be his work in his conceptual work was more, trying to think of the word, more random and being really intentional with the people that I have in my compositions, and being really intentional with creating these sort of works that I'm really intentional of what the dots over the face and what it means to me, because as a drawer, these dots took a really long time. But, thank you.
I'm Sam Yamauchi, and this is my piece. I called it Fauveralls because of the Fauvism movement, and I thought about the color and sort of just being boldness. This is fabric paint and applique, embroidered, and then hand stitching everywhere else. It came after, these were my painting overalls, like these, and I started out by last year putting this painting on it, and I was gonna just cover it eventually all with paintings. And then when I saw this call for this art show, I had done a piece, another piece that just was full of eyes. And so I had a few of those left, so then I decided to put them on here, and then I just added more and more and more. And then I was thinking, oh, well, actually these overalls really tell the story of myself as an artist, because I feel like a lot of artists, like my job is to see things that other people may not see and make it so people can see them. And so then I started writing the text about seeing the unseen, and on the back it says stories that want to be told, and that's the work that I do. And it also says messy book with 2 legs. So another one of my projects that I do is monthly messy books that are just mixed media handmade books that are really spontaneous and unplanned, and they're 8 little pages, and it's a subscription program that I have. And this is very similar to it, where it's just like a lot of imagery, and then there's spontaneous like thoughts that come to me as I'm making it. So I thought, oh, this is like a messy book with 2 legs. That's it. That's all I have.
Great.
Hi, you guys. My name is Pati Jeffers, and some of you guys refer to me as something out of nothing. I've been upcycling since like 1985 when Pretty in Pink came out, and you know the whole thing. She's the one that made it okay for us that are poor to turn something that was thrifted or loved by somebody else into something so fabulous and the star of the show. One day I'll be the star of the show, but until then, I'm going to keep making things. I contributed 2 pieces for the show today. I upcycle everything from flannels, denim, just army jackets. You might have seen the purple rain jacket that Sharon had on for the opening night. That was one that she had gotten from me from a market last year. So I just put 2 cool things together and make it into the more fabulous thing. And this piece right here was a project of passion for me, because I took what I love of upcycling denim and I added macrame in honor of my mom. She's the one that taught me how to macrame when I was real little as well, because I've been sewing since I was like 6. So, and I added in all the crystals for protection and healing, and today just so happens to be my mom's heavenly birthday. So I'm here for her, because normally I'm not a very good public speaker. But anyway, this is my passion. I have variegated jasper, I have some carnelian, I have some beautiful quartz crystals, and it wouldn't be macrame without wood beads and feathers. And if you look at the front, there's also copper findings, and if anybody knows anything about healing and protection, they know that copper is a very grounding metal. So I included that. That was part of the design on my part. And it's just one of those jackets that when you put it on, it should keep you safe. And then the other piece I have on is something closer to what I offer at my markets. This is a piece, it starts out as a, normal in the front, but you go sassy in the back. And it really is an art piece in my mind, because I took a t-shirt that was already amazing, the tie-dye, and then I turned that into the canvas to kind of radiate that, symbolic figure of the tiger and just make it a stronger piece than when it started. So, and I participate in a lot of the markets, and if you walk around the corner to Ronald Records, you'll see my rock and roll flannels that are all upcycled. I'll be at an uptown market on the 28th at Kindred Homestead Supply. Every once in a while I do markets down at Most Everything, and their beautiful space down there. And I do have an Instagram if anybody wants to keep up with what I'm doing, but I'm always upcycling on the side. I do have a full-time job in healthcare as well. So anyway, thank you guys.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Nerissa Eckerson. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. My piece here is called My Cape of Sovereignty, and it's born of the first Afghan I ever crocheted years ago in my young adulthood that I stitched the golden political messaging into for this show. My grandmother taught me to crochet when I was a teenager. It took me several years to complete this blanket as I worked on it sporadically, tearing out rows, restitching over and over. It was a true exercise in patience and persistence. And fiber art has traditionally been assigned women's work, although I see more folks across the gender spectrum taking up the craft, and I am here for it. And women's work, and as women's work, fiber art has often been undervalued. So I wanted to create this piece to honor the medium that I know and love and its important role in craft and history. Craftivism is a practice of speaking truth to power using a variety of media that has been led by women for millennia. And on the other side of that coin, I wanted there to be some whimsy with the idea of this cape being something you might wear in the wear for dress up in the comfort of your own home. And so my cape of sovereignty is an affirmation, and with its cozy blanket weight, it's a comforting reminder that we the people are ruled by no king. And sorry, not done. I do have a passage I want to read to you from Khalil Gibran's The Prophet. and it jumped out at me, this book, off of my shelf, and so it wants to speak to you here today. For how can a tyrant rule the free and the proud, but for a tyranny in their own freedom and a shame in their own pride? And if it is a care you would cast off, that care has been chosen by you rather than imposed upon you. And if it is a fear you would dispel, the seed of that fear is in your heart and not in the hand of the feared. Verily, all things move within your being in constant half embrace, the desired and the dreaded, the repugnant and the cherished, the pursued and that which you would escape. These things move within you as lights and shadows in pairs that cling. And when the shadow fades and is no more, the light that lingers becomes a shadow to another light. And thus your freedom, when it loses its fetters, becomes itself the fetter of a greater freedom. Thanks for being here.
My name is Mike Mason, and I have a collection of what I call gig pants. Like, I'm in a band, and these are my first pair. These go back to high school, so they're 50 years old. And the patches that I made on these, some of them are hand embroidered, like the smiles, the Zizo the Clown, and the Grateful Dead had all did by hand. A long time ago. I didn't know how to embroider. I just kind of self-taught myself. And like really old pants, you sew a patch on, then a hole starts opening up next to it. The fabric just starts breaking down. So these patches, they're all necessary just to hold it together. Some of the, on the back side, there's some fabrics. Here's like one example of a small piece from my floral art that I was having put on cotton to do like fat quarters for quilting. And so I used some of that. Other things are just like really special. People that admired my life who are no longer here embroidered some of the stuff on here. And so very sentimental things. And my father's ROTC patch. There's a small patch on the back that's from my uncle's granddad in the war had shot down a Japanese Zero, and the guy parachuted out, and they took his parachute and he had it in the barn, and so they gave me a piece of that. So there's all sorts of like odd pieces that go way back, and so I ended up, I couldn't wear these after a while because as you get older you get bigger. And so I ended up having to make other pairs to do gigs with, and I would play it in a band called the Weevils. This is a Weevil patch here that was hand done. So I had a couple other pair, and I was kind of always mindful of the dress for the occasion. Like I always thought of the story about Benjamin Franklin going to the French court to get money, and they told him they expect you to be like a pioneer. So he wore like buckskins and a raccoon skin hat, and they were very pleased with that, and they gave him the money. So it was like you dress for the occasion. And I wear these when I play music or I do an art show. And one time I was at the Tualatin Art Splash, and I won a honorary mention prize, and she said, well, the art could have won the prize, but the jeans, so then I took that gift certificate and I went to cash it in, and the lady knew who I was and gave me a show, and the show was the most successful show I ever had. And so kind of like one thing led to the other. And the guy in my band passed away, and I was wearing these pants for the celebration of life, and somebody asked me to do them a pair, so afterwards, and so I've done that on occasion for other people. But I really enjoy, it's way different from what I normally do, but I really enjoy doing jeans and coats and stuff like that. And so I guess that's a story. I got the idea from looking at a Neil Young album. I think it was called After the Gold Rush. And he has like these jeans on there with some patches. I could do better than that, you know, so I guess that's all there. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you to Art at the Cave for giving me the opportunity to be here with all of you and be a part of this beautiful exhibition. I grew up in Indiana, and I have always identified as an artist. I have very supportive parents, thankfully. And I went to a small university in the middle of a cornfield in Indiana called DePauw University, where I was a studio art major. And as a sophomore, I went out to the high desert of New Mexico for a Jan term where I learned how to make jewelry for the first time. I had always been doing two-dimensional work, painting and drawing up until then. And I started making jewelry, and it changed my life. I really fell in love with the kinetic action of it all, playing with fire, banging big pieces of metal around, cutting stones and polishing them and shaping them into the forms that I wanted to do. And this is one of several pieces that I have here in this show. So that kinetic energy. I also really fell in love with the relationship that we have with jewelry, which is very different than other forms of artwork. I know everyone in this room can relate to that, as we're all, makers of wearable art. It's definitely a different relationship that we have to it than we do any other art form that we hang on a wall or a sculpture or something like that. So that was another thing that I really fell in love with. From there, I went on and got a master's in jewelry and silversmithing design at the Glasgow School of Art in Scotland. And there I was scampering around most of Scotland and other parts of the United Kingdom, looking at the stone circles, so the megalithic circles and things like that, like Stonehenge, and some of the other formations around. And I was really drawn to those. So I'm still, as you can see, making my own versions of stone circles here with different pieces of shell, semi-precious stones, and I do all that work myself. I was also in undergrad. I was really inspired by a trip to Italy, where I was going through all the different old churches throughout Europe and looking at all the stained glass. So I'm still really working with those plays of color, and I still sort of think of myself as a painter of colors, even though it's not on a canvas anymore. Yeah, and that's all about me and my work. Thank you very much.
Give a shout out to the cave. I love you guys. The space is wonderful and you guys do such a good job. These pieces, I've been thinking about them for a while because my friend Cynthia, who has a couple of pieces here, was so inspired by this idea that I feel like we've been talking about it for like 6 months or so, coming up with ideas and batting them around. But when I got down to making these, I'm a collector of things. So I had a whole bin of silk pods and tomatillo shells, those things that come around little fruit. And I often work with things that are fragile, that are going to fall apart, which kind of speaks about like the nature of life and nature and how we're all connected to those kind of things. Putting these into wearable forms also kind of speaks to femininity and the way that we try and preserve beauty, and the way we have to let go of ideas of beauty. So yeah, so these won't last, they'll eventually fall apart. But I want to point out the baby's breath, just because that's such a symbolic title for those flowers. You know, it's kind of heartbreaking to think about these flowers as baby's breath, that it's like caught in this moment of flowers. But it also very much speaks to motherhood and family. Yeah, I think that's maybe all I've got, but thank you.
Hi, I painted this jacket. Well, I guess I should start by saying I grew up painting. My grandmother was an artist, her father was an artist, and my grandma had me in art classes my whole life, from the time I was little. And when she passed away, it sucked. and I didn't know what to do. I stopped painting for a really long time, and then for her memorial service, we had to wait like a year to do it because of COVID and everything. And so when it finally came time to do it, I decided to paint a scene of a beach on the back of a jacket so I could wear it to her service. And it was the beach that she lived at almost my whole childhood, and was it was super important to her. So I was able to wear that, and then I got so many people talking to me about it, and they were like, you should do more of these. And then I did. So I actually moved here from California, and I think as artists or enjoyers of art, I think all of us have experienced, seeing a piece of artwork or something for the first time, and like you get that emotional feeling, and you see something and it makes you lose your breath, and you're like, oh my, you just get that emotional, I don't even know what to call it. Like, it's just a reaction to something. And moving here from California was all beaches. It was very flat. Everything's beige. I hate it. But when I moved up here, one of the first trips we took into Portland, and I saw this bridge, and I did that gasp. And I was like, I've never seen a bridge like that before in my life. And it's an unusual color, and it really spoke to me. And so a couple years ago, I decided that I wanted to kind of commemorate my move up here. And I primarily paint a lot of flowers and nature scenes, and so I thrifted this jacket, and I knew I wanted to do something on it, and I didn't know what, and finally I just woke up one day and was like, that's it, that's what's going on there. And so yeah, I kind of do a lot of jackets now, and shoes, and I work with disabled children too, and so a lot of the adaptive wear that they have is very plain, and a lot of kids, want Spider-Man shoes and Batman shoes or stuff like that. So I like to customize those as well, which is kind of fun. So yeah, and it's personally, it's fun for me to take something that maybe was sold a lot of different places. A lot of people might have this jacket, but not this one anymore. Like, there's going to be something different on it, and I kind of like that. So, yeah, that's.
Hi, I'm CoCo, and I'm an artist. I'm an artist of a lot of different forms. My first form, when I was young, was singing. My whole entire family are singers. It goes way back through the history of our family. That in the Finnish tradition, we sing things into existence. So many of my relatives sing in choir or whatever. I don't sing professionally, but I love to sing. And my piece is based on one of my favorite songs to sing, which is The Rainbow, so Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And that song, the wonderful thing about when Wizard of Oz came out, I saw someone sing a world from brown to color. And that was something that just filled my heart, and I just always wanted to do that. And so then my next form was to go into theater, and we would produce plays on the back porch with my aunts. I have like 7 aunts, so they had a lot of old 50s clothes. And so we had this huge pile of costumes. And so we would dress up in these and play on stage, and we would do those musicals. And so this also embodies that, because it's a rainbow dress that I would have worn on stage. So then time passed, and I got into theater, and I met a lot of what some people might call rainbow people now. I met a lot of people that were very who they were, and I met a lot of people who, when I grew up, you couldn't be gay, you had to hide that. And so then I met a lot of really great people in the theater that were gay, and all of a sudden that was once rainbow people, right? And then about a year ago, my eldest son came to me, and he had his ears pierced. And I looked at him and I said, that's different, I haven't seen that. And he said, well, I'm exploring my gender identity. And I had never thought he was gonna do that. But I was like, okay, keep me posted on that. And over the last year and a half, I've gotten to know a side of my son that I didn't know. And he's still exploring that. and he has a beautiful partner that he's with, and they're talking about getting married, and I got so excited. I thought, I really want to make a dress for a rainbow wedding. And so this piece is called His Rainbow Wedding. I don't know if he'll wear it or his partner will wear it or I will wear it, but I just went into my big pile of costumes and pulled out every rainbow I could find and just started ripping them and cutting them apart. And so it has about 6 dresses. I think there's about 6 dresses in it that are just torn and ripped, and then it also has a bunch of rainbow curtains. And so that's the story of His Rainbow Wedding. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Brenda Bokenyi. I am a collage artist. I make my own handmade paper, and this skirt is made entirely out of my handmade paper. I created it when I was an artist in residence in New Orleans with Collage Magazine. We were down there working with local artists, and the part of the purpose of the residency was to be in the inaugural paper parade. So I was in a Mardi Gras parade with my skirt. So that's why the skirt was made, and the idea for the parade was to make things mostly or completely out of paper. So this is made almost entirely out of paper, including the button, which has a story in and of itself. This button was made with a lot of love and patience, and attaching it into the skirt took a lot of time and a lot of layers, and working with the local artist, she had her method of how she worked with youth locally and in using and reusing a lot of products. And so it was really important for us to reuse as much as possible. And darn it, I didn't want to do anything but make a paper button for the paper parade with my paper skirt. And so I was really proud that I got that done. And obviously I was the model for the skirt, so it fits me, whatever size this might be. And it was just a lot of fun to do. And we got to march in a Mardi Gras parade with our paper products. So it's really a lot of fun. Thanks for being here.
Okay, I'm Aunt John. So I'm in charge here, but not really, because they do everything for me. But does anybody know what this is? Pardon? Do you know what the clothing is? Huh?
Is it underwear?
It is. It would be men's underwear. Yeah. So I don't think I was aiming for anything beautiful or anything like that. I was just having fun, which I like to do. This part here was one of my painting rags. And I keep my paint rags, and anybody who's an artist probably can attest that sometimes our paint rags are more interesting than our art. So, but anyway, I was not going to put anything in this show, and 2 days before we planned to put it up, I suddenly got the idea that I should do a jockstrap. And so literally ordered it online, and it came the next day, put a rush on it. And believe it or not, it looks simple, but it took me a full day just to paint this thing green. I don't know why. But and the title is The Power of the Eye Power. So you can put your own interpretation into that. And I think that's about it. Does anybody have any questions about the gallery? No?
When did you open?
Huh?
When did you open?
2018. So we've been here for 7 years, right? Yeah.
How do you advertise your call for entries?
We do it, well, we put them in the Columbian, and then we kind of keep a list of everybody who's been in it before, or people who are interested, and we send it out through email and that kind of thing. Yeah. So, yes?
Yeah, it's really nice to meet you. I just want to let you know that I was
when the call for artists on the social media came out, I was tagged in that post by another business owner. And now that I have a little taste of it, I kind of feel like that I like the idea of people acknowledging the fact that those of us that create clothing as art, it kind of makes people's eyes open a little bit that we are artists as well, not just someone that draws on. Okay, don't. I said that wrong. We all know what I meant. No, I don't. But what I'm saying is the standard how people look at art, and now that you've kind of opened that up for me, you know, I've been advocating my creations as wearable art since I started my business, and I just want to know if your call for artists. I look at the next two coming up, and I can kind of see something. I might have an idea, or is that open to wearable art in those categories, or?
I think so. We're pretty open to anything that impresses us.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Terry?
Just as an aside to the answer to your question, when we have an open call, unless it's very specific to a medium, there's always all medium, including wearable art and including video. It's always all.
Okay.
And we blind jury, so we all get together. Sharon does a wonderful job putting together a slideshow, and we vote, but we don't know who the artist is, so we vote strictly on what we're seeing. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, I'm done. Yay.
If you don't know, I made the piece back there. It's called the Corwoggle. It's mostly bike tires that my son gave me a box full of, and they wanted to become a creature. It's transformative and can be worn in a variety of different ways, and hopefully I'll be able to experiment with that next week. I'm a multimedia artist. I'm a musician. I've shown here a few times now, mostly making figurative sculpture, clay portraits primarily. You can see a variety of those on my Instagram, which is AndyThing. No, wait, that's my website. My website is andything.com. On Instagram, I'm Andy of Clay. So, yeah, mostly clay portraits, but I'm one of those people that, you know, you give me any sort of object and I can find an unorthodox use for it. And this happens to be something that is wearable. It may not be clothing, but sure, this is wearable art, or anything that could be an appendage off of oneself can certainly be considered wearable art. I'm curious about how we use clothing as identity, as a way to send a message about ourselves into the world, and how that really is a fluid proposition. My realization about ourselves and our life is that we really don't know what we are. We don't know what we are as individuals, and we certainly don't know what we are as a collective. And I think that we hide quite a bit. We hide from our potential. If nothing else, I would encourage us to be more bold. And now is the time. If there was ever a time for us to come together and be bold, take a chance and connect and startle ourselves. We're much bigger than we think we are. We're much freer than we allow ourselves to be. Now is the time to really find that out, because time is short. I think we're aware of that. So, this is a sort of black flag. It could be interpreted in a lot of different ways. It could be a veil. It could be worn as a garment, certainly. Black velvet. Gotta love it. And yeah, I look forward to exploring our potential together as artists, as a community. The Cave is a fantastic nexus of art and community. I'm honored to be part of this show. What a great collection of art and artists this is. I'm really grateful, and I'm really curious about what comes next. Thank you.
I have two paper dresses. They're skirts and tops. And I was just thinking about why I keep making these like armored kind of shirts and these skirts. And I just realized while hearing everyone else speak, I think it's because I'm very, I'm kind of soft. I'm very emotionally soft. And so I think that I want to put this armor on to protect my heart and to protect my core. And then I also love to dance. And so I come out with all these skirts. And they are, the two pieces that are here in the gallery are scraps or leftovers from the other art that I do. So there's like plastic negatives that I use to do my exposures, and I use those as discs on the top. And then the skirt that's upstairs is the stencil background on like craft paper, so it's colorful, and just the residual spray paint that sprays over. And then the one downstairs has scraps from cuttings from the postcards, the show cards that I make for the gallery. And as an environmentalist, I feel terrible at producing all of this extra trash, and so I want to do something with it creatively. And then what was the other element? Oh, the calendar skirt. My grandpa was always plotting and scheming how to win the lottery, and he would come up with he would just have journals full of like different ways to win the lottery and different ideas, and he was going to crack the code one day. So a friend of mine who is Chinese, and she came back from China on a visit, and she brought me this calendar, and I just thought it would make a pretty flappy skirt option. And then I saw the numbers, and I thought, oh, well, you could like spin around and like pick your numbers for the lottery, and that might be just as functional as Grandpa's very detailed methods. Anyway, thanks for listening to me talk about my art. I think Terrence might be ready. Sure. Yes, excellent. Terrence Burns, everyone.
This piece is called Record Jacket. It's sort of an obvious title. The records are removable, so they're still able to be played. And a little backstory with this piece. As many people, I grew up listening to Casey Kasem on American Top 40 on Sunday mornings, and he always did the countdown of the top 10 songs, and actually it was the top 50 songs, and then ended with the top 10. Anyhow, my father and I, that was our time together every Sunday morning. We did not go to religious services. Instead, we dressed up and told Mother that we had gone. And my reward for keeping this secret was to get records. So on our way home, after we went to 2 donut shops, a restaurant, maybe visiting other friends of his that were inappropriate for a child, we would hit the record store, and depending on the amount of time we were gone and as much as I heard the program, would be how many records I would get. So sometimes it'd be 2 or 3, other times I'd leave with like 20. And I always thought it was odd that no one would question why I was coming home with all these records every week. And then, of course, coming up with the little story about what did they say at the Mass? It was like, well, anyhow, enough of that. And then another thing with records, as a student at the Art Institute of Chicago, I took a rack of 45s to a party, and I had to leave early, so I left my records sitting next to the stereo, thinking, well, they'll give them back to me in another day or 2. Well, the apartment caught fire, and the rack I had left there, the records all melted together and were fused, and it was incredibly heavy. They did give me the records back, and then I took that, which I titled Record Log, or Portrait of the Artist as a Roasted Rack of Records, and put it in 3 different student shows where it kept getting prizes. And I thought, this is ironic, because I was about to throw it out, but instead it got to go to a few galleries, so that was fun. So this sort of celebrates my love of records, patchwork summer clothes, and since it is all still playable, I'll be able to use many of these things again, like what's back here? Oh, Jimmy Rogers record, Cotton Candy. I know People by Barbra Streisand's on the front, but yeah, I'm going to use these again, and I realized I can wear this too. I'm a recent volunteer programmer for KBOO Community Radio in Portland, and when they have events, I figured, well, I'll just wear this jacket to the events, which will be perfect for that. So I thank the gallery for having this show and for letting me put this piece in here. And, well, I don't need to tell anyone here, but this gallery is a real gem in Vancouver, and we're really lucky to have it. And I look forward to participating in more shows, coming to shows, seeing everything that happens, and I love Art at the Cave.
Thank you, Terrence, and to all of the artists. And please, that concludes our artist talk. Please stick around and enjoy the show.